All right, just making sure I've done that several times.
All right, here we go. Welcome to the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy, such as the Deferred Sales Trust, is the best way for you to exit your cryptocurrency, business, real estate, or other highly appreciated asset. I'm your host, Brett Swarts. In each episode, I am joined by some of the best real estate, financial, wealth, and business minds in the world, where they share their ideas, deal stories, and inspiration, so together we can make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. I'm excited about our next guest. He is an entrepreneur with two successful exits so far under his belt. He worked for two venture capital firms in marketing and at a $200 billion internet company, and has been a CEO of venture-backed companies. He's been featured in Forbes, Entrepreneur Magazine, Success Magazine, Fast Company, and many others. He took all of this experience with him, and he maintains his a powerful mindset, tunes his body, and quickly builds businesses, and developed a new framework as a shortcut for himself. With it, he easily turns his ideas into products into businesses, and quickly ramps up sales. Please welcome to the show with me, Brandon C. White. Hey, Brandon, how you doing?
Hey, thanks a lot, Brett, for that.
Absolutely. Welcome to the show. And for our listeners getting to know you for the first time, can you give us a little bit more about your background and your current focus?
My background is, I think I'm a lifelong entrepreneur. I had a few stops in between as a venture capitalist working for two venture capital firms. And I made a stop at America Online back at what now is the early days, and had a lot of fun there. And then after business school, went out back into the entrepreneur side of things. And I've been on that side ever since. And luckily enough, been lucky enough and grateful to have two exits so far. And my current focus is, I'm an angel investor, and I invested in several businesses, and I have my own business, which is really a media company, if you will, where I publish, of all things, Brett, a print newsletter that is only available in print. So you can't even find it digitally. And it's written for entrepreneurs to make them smarter, happier, and richer.
Amazing. Absolutely love that. And to get to know you a little bit more, Brandon C. White, by the way, you can find Brandon C. White at brandoncwhite.com. I believe we've all been given, certain gifts in this life. And I want you to go back, if you would, with me, go back to maybe your high school days or college days or whatever, when you were younger, and maybe there's a strength or a gift that you've been given, that you believe you've been given. What are those, and how does that help how you help and bless people today?
As ironic as it may sound, I think that having dyslexia was my superpower. Now, if you had asked me that through elementary school, I think my answer would have been a lot different, because it was really hard. But what dyslexia did for me is being, well, having to work extremely hard for everything that I did academically was just something that, I don't know, maybe brought out an innate thing that I had that, if you asked me my why is, I just like to compete, and I compete with myself, and I just want to try to be better every single day, whatever that means. And it's true. I am highly competitive, and sometimes have to put that into check, just because, I'll be competitive with my wife, who's a wonderful woman. Sometimes, it can be overwhelming. So I am really intense in that way, but I've had to have that intensity and that focus and that drive, because it just was so hard. I still to this day can't spell out words. I can't hear the sounds. I memorize everything. And I just taught myself to memorize things and read it. So I think that really just gave me this intense passion to be great. And that's really what's got me to where I am today, among many other things, and many other people who helped me that didn't need to, along the way, including my wife, who I always want to make sure that I mention, because I think entrepreneurs forget many times that their most important team is their partner and their family.
Beautiful. Very well said. Taking dyslexia to an extreme, helping it to forge extremely hard work ethic, and then taking that to competition, and then making sure that you're aligned well with your spouse. Is that a fair summary?
I think that's a really good summary.
Excellent. Very good. Let's move into the next question. We're going to talk about qualified small business stock exclusions. Okay. So this is, imagine owning stock in a company where the prices appreciates greatly, then you sell it and you pay no tax on your profit. Apparently that's what you can do with the qualified small business stock, QSBS. So Brandon's going to share a little bit about his experience with this. In fact, he, I believe, used it for one of his business sales. So Brandon, let's dive right in. What's the biggest kept secret when it comes to the qualified small business stock exclusion?
I think the biggest secret is that you get chunks of $10 million for the most part tax-free. And the way that it works, and I am not a lawyer, accountant, financial person, so you should consult your professional with this. But as an entrepreneur, I'll tell you that when I learned about this, it was really incredible, because imagine being able to get profits out almost tax-free. Now, I say almost because different states, we live in California and they have their own rules around using this. But effectively what it does, Brett, it says that if you have a C corporation and if you have 5 years of history in that corporation, and that corporation was worth less than $50 million when you either invested or started it, that you qualify for this stock exclusion that allows you to take what it says is up to $10 million tax-free. The dirty little secret about this great tax haven, if you will, I don't know what to call it, is that you can take out chunks of $10 million. So you really should consult a lawyer or, a tax attorney or a tax accountant with this. But what they can do for you is you can set up separate entities. So you could also give $10 million to your wife. You could give $10 million to your kids. You could set up LLCs that you may or may not own that also receive that $10 million. So it effectively would allow you to sell a $50 or $100 million type or company and get that money at very low taxes, which is, I believe we all should pay our fair share. My wife always reminds me that as we've traveled, you go to other countries and you find this extreme poverty that is not a place that we want to live in the United States of America. But at the end of the day, I think optimizing our tax strategy is always a smart thing.
Yes, very well said. Couldn't agree with you more. So, okay. So in summary, if you have a C Corp and you've, I guess, been owning or operating it for less than 5 years, and when you first started, it was less than a $50 million, I guess, startup, you can take chunks out of it, $10 million, tax free. Now, are you selling that position and then receiving that cash? And then what are the limitations to this? Like, what do you need to do with the cash, or where is it going from there?
Well, I hope it's going into your investment account that's going to earn more money. But I want to say one thing. My understanding of this and use of it is that you must have owned that stock for at least 5 years.
Got it.
So you basically are vesting that stock effectively, is what the government is saying, and they're doing that so that you just don't do these quick flips. I guess in who wrote this, I believe this was done early in the Obama administration. Mm-hmm. So effectively, that C Corp needs to be aged. And you can, well, what I have been doing is to build a strategy around that, where I have a C Corps that are aged, that could hold intellectual property or could buy another company. And now you have that mechanism. So it would allow you, if you give some forethought to this, to have a 3-year company do, I don't say a flip, but you could build and sell a company within 3 years, and you could almost roll it into a C Corp. There's a lot of nuances here, depending on that type of company, whether it's a real estate deal or a technology company, that you need to take into consideration. But what I've been doing is that, and then I use a structure where I have an S Corp for my management company. I borrowed this, if you will, from what I learned in the venture capital business as it relates to how venture firms set up the different funds. and the management companies that manage each one of those funds. And I effectively morph that into an entrepreneur strategy where I can have my S Corp get a lot of my income so that I get all the tax advantages that come along with an S Corp and a 401k and all these things that you can do, while still maintaining that C Corp as the company, so that if and when we ever sold one of those companies, that we would then be able to take advantage of this qualified small business stock exclusion.
Okay. So maybe we can try to get practical with it now too, because I think you said you used it for one of your businesses. Is that correct?
I did.
Okay. So maybe you can tell us that story. What was that business? And you're welcome to share the numbers or not, up to you, but just kind of give us how that all went down and what you liked and what you didn't so much like about the QSBS.
Yeah, sure. So here's the good news and the bad news. The bad news is that I didn't do it properly. And I found out afterwards, and it was an LLC that we had to convert. And there's a whole chart, if you look this up, where if you incorporate before a date, and if you're a different type of corporation and you change, then you get this graduated scale that you can take advantage. So you might not get 100%. So I didn't get 100% on this. And that's why I'm so proficient at understanding it now for the future, is because I didn't get it, but I can't share the numbers because I'm under an NDA, because it was a media company. It was the largest social networking site, social networking and e-commerce site on the internet of all things, Brett, sport fishermen. And I had started
in Laramie, Wyoming, doing some fly fishing. So that hits home. That's my first time I did last week. I don't know if that's considered sports fishing or not, but that was anyways. Sorry.
Well, at least you're getting a rod in your hand, Brett. That's the important part. So sport fishing in general, as I define, is really around saltwater fishing, but, or it could be hunting big fish too. That's sport fishing too. But the way we defined it is saltwater fishing, and it could be fly fishing or trolling or anything like that. But I started that company in 1996. I bootstrapped it. I actually traded stocks to fund it, which is how I learned about a lot of other tax. I'm not suggesting anyone do that, but it did work. And then we raised money, and then I bought it back from the investors and ultimately sold it.
Okay, excellent. And so had you done it correctly, or done it earlier, meaning you set up the C Corp earlier, didn't have to get the graduated in, what other downsides were there? I mean, because that sounds pretty sweet, right? You get to, is it deferring the tax, right? Is
no. No, you're not deferring anything. Okay. You're just not getting taxed.
Got it.
I can't say for certain that that's what a lot of venture firms in the Valley here do, but I can't imagine one of the things that they're not doing. And that's how they get that tax advantage, because, as you know, living in California is probably one of the highest tax states in the country. But there's really no downside other than making sure that you document and do this correctly with a professional who leads you through it.
Got it. And the cash just goes to your account. You can buy your boat, go buy a primary house, buy whatever you want. It's your money.
It's your money, man. Sweet. You earned it.
That's a pretty good deal. I like that deal. Yeah, I'm always learning something new every day. Okay, so now let's talk about estate tax, right? Because I know sometimes that can be a challenge as well for a lot of folks, especially the exclusion of 22 million married, 12 million single, going to expire in 2025, and even Biden might even lower that sooner, which would take it to 7 million married, potentially 3.5 million single. So anything above that's 40% tax, as well as the stepped up basis being challenged. So number of things that I'm throwing at you right here to see kind of what your thoughts are on that. But any thoughts on estate tax and stepped up basis and what's going on here, Brandon?
Well, I've got to tell you that my wife and I don't have any kids. I assume that our nephew and nieces will inherit our money, and I feel sad for them. I don't plan on dying anytime soon. So I don't, knock on wood here. But I'm not a big fan of what's going on here. I think what I believe and have believed, because I'm still not that old, is that while we do need to be cognizant of this, I think we all need to remember, Brett, that at least I'm old enough to know that these cycles come and go. And just because the Biden administration attempts to change it, whether or not they'll be able to is yet to be determined on what's going on in Congress and if they're going to stay true to their word and get bipartisan support, which would be maybe welcome from many of us in the country, movement forward on how we should rule. But I think that even if that did get passed, it doesn't mean it's forever. And I think, if you're not planning on dying in the next decade, maybe a little bit more than decade, if Biden got reelected another term, then we would need, you're making a bet there. But if you're 10 to 15 to 20 years out, I don't see it as a something to start freaking out about. But I do think that it's not something that I like.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what do you mean, Brandon? You worked, 10, 20, 1996, right? And you make this big sale and you got this wealth, why shouldn't the government just take 40% of that? You know what I mean? Like you got this QSBS already. Right? They gave you 10 million tax free, right?
I mean, are you really asking me why they shouldn't? Because I'm happy to answer that question if you want me to.
We don't have to go into that. But that just kind of giving the folks out there who might not know about the estate tax. By the way, it has nothing to do with the stepped up basis. Has nothing to do with capital gains tax. Estate tax is 40% on top of already what you've been taxed on, already what you've earned, and it's basically a wealth tax on your death, which is kind of crazy to think about. I just did a look at that, and with Biden, they did a hypothetical. Someone who started from zero, grows his net worth to 100 million. If the proposal goes through the way that they're proposing it, not only would at death that 100 million, it would be taxed. There was no stepped up basis, as well as the estate tax. They're looking at about 61% of that, Brandon, assuming all of it's inside of the taxable estate, right? Which with the Deferred Sales Trust, we could sell assets before you pass and move it outside your taxable estate, and the other charitable things too. But had they not done anything, literally 61 million approximately would be owed to the government.
That
right?
seems
and you go like, really? And they have to, and it actually triggers at death, it's triggered. There's this, it's not a stepped up basis. Actually, the tax is now triggered. So it could create all kinds of turmoil. So we are hoping and I'm praying that it doesn't go that way, because to me, wealth in the hands of the people is always better spent, more accountable, and actually more generously given to people than wealth in the hands of the government. But that's maybe the big debate, right, Brandon?
Well, I guess it maybe some people are debating it. I find it, and look, my lens is an entrepreneur who takes incredible risk to build something from a spare bedroom and put everything on the line, and to swallow the fact that 61% of that would be consumed by someone who feels that, or an entity that feels like they should get that, is it's an interesting point of discussion that I would welcome over a dinner.
Yeah, for sure. But we digress. So let's keep moving on here. So QSBS, that's an awesome strategy. Tell us a little bit more about what you're currently doing, Brandon. What are you working on now? What's your passion and your focus for helping others or growing businesses? Tell us a little bit about the podcast too.
Well, currently, Brett, a lot of people helped me along the way to my success that didn't need to help me. And I think after 2+ decades of being an entrepreneur and a lot of scars on my back, I felt like I could share a lot of the information that I've learned, and mistakes like this. I didn't do that qualified small business stock exclusion right. Did I benefit from it? I certainly did. But if someone had, which someone did, a friend, luckily, taught me about it, I would have been better off because of it. So I started to back in 1996, I originally wanted to write a newsletter. That fishing site that I sold, the original plan was to create a magazine. So about a year and a half ago, decided that I was going to start writing a print newsletter, and bring my original vision forward. But we weren't going to talk about fishing. We were going to talk about things that an entrepreneur or small, medium-sized business owner or management in there would want to read, from real data too. I think some of the publications out there now are very aspirational and motivational, but motivation wanes and behaviors don't happen once that motivation wanes. So I thought I would write about mind, body, and business with the idea of making you smarter, happier, and richer, along with investing advice that I had learned. Because I think very often, Brett, entrepreneurs, we're so, I call it absolute focused on what we're doing. And then we make this wealth, money, and then we don't know what to, some people don't know how to invest it. They don't know how to invest it. They don't know how to protect it. They don't know how to take care of it. And I thought to myself, well, why don't I share what my strategies have been? And my returns have been relatively decent. I mean, over the last 10 years, my retirement account, if you want to call it that, has returned about 50%. So, that was just, and I didn't do anything magical. I tell people, Brett, I didn't do anything magical. I just followed some books and advice that I read, and I stayed diligent and unemotional about the money. And so I started writing this newsletter called Build a Business Success Secrets. And then I did a podcast, actually been podcasting since 1997. If you can believe that. It wasn't called a podcast. It was more of a audio file on the internet. So I didn't have to type 4,000 words on a fishing report. But we have a podcast called Build a Business Success Secrets, where we talk about many of the same things. In the newsletter, we go much more into depth just because we have the room and the time. And I'm not always willing to tell people the exact stocks that, although maybe I should go on Reddit and do that. That's a half of a joke, but what stocks I bought or what our Facebook advertising customer acquisition costs are today. So in the newsletter, we go over that sort of data, which is real actionable information for small and medium-sized business owners.
Absolutely love that. And where can people find that exact newsletter or sign up or subscribe to that?
Well, they can go to two places. One, they could go to brandoncwhite.com, or you can just go straight to bsuccesssecrets.com. That's B as in business, successsecrets.com.
Excellent. That being said, are you ready for the lightning round, Brandon?
I don't know. Let's go, though.
All right. Knowing what you know now, if you go back to your 25-year-old self, what's the one golden nugget you'd make sure to tell yourself to do?
Wow, 25. Don't believe in your head that just because you know what to do, that's good enough. Actually execute on your plans.
Okay, good. I like that. Think about that one, but I like it. Second question, biggest frustration with capital gains tax deferral options for real estate, cryptocurrency.
My biggest frustration is that you really need to have someone help you and hire someone, because it's moving all the time. And the government isn't going to alert you that you didn't take the deduction or you didn't take the most advantageous method to do it. And you got to stay on top of it. So either stay on top of it yourself, which takes a lot of time, or have someone help you who is a professional and spends night and day or most of their full-time job taking care of that for you.
Beautiful. Love that. Are you investing in real estate? If so, what was the best real estate deal you've done?
I am investing in real estate, and the best deal that I ever did so far was a house in Northern Virginia that we bought. It was actually a large 3-story townhouse on a lake. And, we just got, I don't say we got lucky. I felt like the market was going up. We bought it, and within probably 4 years, I think we rented it for a year. I forget what the return was, but on a leverage basis, it was absolutely ridiculous. So it was a home, and I'm currently looking at real estate in my hometown here of Half Moon Bay, California, because I just believe that, contrary to what maybe some of the press is saying, that California real estate will continue to go up, and mainly because you can't develop anymore. And with that, you can't develop a lot, especially on the coast of California. It's set. So I'm looking for opportunities. It's expensive as it relates to most parts of the other country, but the appreciation in our own house here has gone up so significantly that I believe there's still upside.
Excellent. Very well said. Favorite book or you've gifted or read in the past year?
In the past year, oh man, I was preparing for I was preparing forever. In the last year, I just read a book. Oh, I know what it's 7 Essays on the Brain. And it is by a lady psychiatrist or psychologist. And the reason why it's been so impactful for me is because 7.5 lessons about the brain by Lisa Feldman Barrett. And the reason is because new research on the brain has uncovered that this idea around the triune brain, you can maybe tell I'm either a geek or a psychology major with a master's as well, but it has uncovered that the triune brain theory is not correct. And that is actually not how the brain works. So when you start talking about the reptile brain and how you react or how you position things because of the rational brain, it's completely inaccurate. And I encourage everyone to read that because it really will change how you think about almost everything you do, including business.
Wow. Let's check that out. 7 essays on the brain.
7.5 essays.
7.5 essays on the brain. Excellent. Second to last question. What are you most curious about right now?
I am, wow. God, it would have been good if you would have prepared me for these, Brett. But I know that's why it's the lightning round. The most curious thing I am about right now is how do you stand up on a surfboard consistently?
A shortboard or longboard?
A longboard.
Okay. Wow.
In Northern California.
All right. Very good. Love it. Last question, Brandon, and we'll let you go. After all your success, helping so many people, being featured in so many major publications, building businesses, selling them for a lot of money, all of those things, deferring tax using the QSBS exclusion, how do you stay centered in your values, and how do you stay encouraged to charge forward to reach new heights?
I never take for granted what I have or how far I've come. And I always keep my ego in check. I think that the moment that you believe that you're as good as your mind may think you are is the moment that you'll get caught off guard. And I'm just really grateful for everything that we've been able to achieve along the way here. So I think that this has been used a lot. So the reason I'm hesitating, Brett, is because everybody has this thing, wake up and be grateful thing. But I think it's deeper than just that. I think it's truly understanding and being able to look back and say, I really am grateful and wanting what you have. Once you want what you have, which that sounds simple, but took me a long time to do that. But once you want what you have, you start to really be able to, be happy and live life in a positive way.
Beautiful. Well, Brandon C. White, I want to thank you for being on the show. I want to encourage you to keep using the gifts you've been given, such as taking that dyslexia and turning it to a great work ethic and a desire to compete and to do great things. And for our listeners who want to get in touch with you, we remind them one last time where they can find you.
Best placed is just to tune into Brandon, BRANDONC, White.com.
Beautiful. Brandon, thanks for being on the show. And I also want to thank our listeners for listening to another episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast. As always, we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy, such as the QSBS exclusion or the Deferred Sales Trust, is the best way for you to exit highly appreciated businesses. But the Deferred Sales Trust, definitely for cryptocurrency,